Hi, this is Tim, aka Spinnaker. Use that name on the Zuari website and Zoocrawler's website. Hey, just want to go ahead and go over a couple steps required in adapting a Harley Davidson CV carburetor to work on the Samurai. This is a carburetor off of a 2002 Harley Davidson Sportster, 1200. I've been told that any of the CV carburetors from 1999 to 2006, as long as they're on the 88, the twin cam 88 motors, will work just fine. Not too sure about other carburetors for the Samurai. This one I picked up on eBay for about $45, including shipping. Includes the choke cable right here. That's usually about a $40 part if it doesn't come with it. If you want to pick it up from a Zuari friendly or a Samurai friendly website, give Myron at Zook's Off-Road a call. I think he's got them for about $40. Alright, this one also came with the throttle cable adapter plate for the Harley Davidsons. Realistically, you don't use any of this part up here, but it is nice to have the throttle stop back there. To start out with, this is a vacuum operated slide in this carburetor. So when you turn the throttle, all you do is open the butterfly. As you can see, when you twist it, the slide doesn't move. The slide operates the needle for the main jet. Okay, so to start off with, we need to make a modification to the slide. So I'll go ahead and take it apart. I have removed most of the screws in this carburetor just to make it easier for the video. Alright, go ahead and pull that off. Under the cap for the vacuum diaphragm is a large spring. You're going to want to go ahead and make sure you keep a thumb on top of the cap, else you'll be shooting the cap and the spring halfway across your living room. Alright. One note, the Harley Davidson, the stock screws and everything that they use on this are absolute crap. I would look at getting replacements if you can. The one problem being, you know, this is a Harley Davidson stock screw right here. It's probably a $60 screw. Alright, so you take your cap off. You've got your slide spring under it. You have your slide in the diaphragm. Just go ahead and give it a tug and it all comes out. You can see it takes the needle with it. Alright, set the carb to the side for the moment. Inside the slide, you have the retainer that holds the spring, centers the spring, and keeps the needle set down on its seat. And then you tip it over and your needle falls out. Alright, the first modification we have to do is on the bottom of the slide we have two holes. The center hole is used for where the needle comes out. The upper hole is a vacuum port that operates this slide. What you need to do is drill that upper hole out to a 1/8 of an inch. Use a 1/8 inch drill bit. Drill that out. Make sure you clean it up so there's no rough edges and no burrs sticking out. That makes a huge difference. It allows the slide to operate in this carburetor on our engine. The twin cam produces more vacuum, or the twin cam Harley motor produces more vacuum than our motor will produce, and it won't actuate the slide unless we make this mod. The needle is a non-adjustable needle, but to make a big improvement on the carb, take a small washer, slide it over the needle. This allows you to tune the needle on it. It fattens up the jet a little bit without having to change the jet. You can run 1 to 2 washers on there. If you end up having to run more than 2 washers, it's time to up your main jet. Alright, so to reinstall this, you just drop it right down the center. Make sure that the washer doesn't fall down in there. Drop your cap in. We'll go ahead and wait for a second. The carburetor, the slide can only go in one way. It can't go in 180 degrees off. It just doesn't fit. So we'll go ahead and drop the spring back in. Set the cap on. The big thing here is making sure that you don't pinch the diaphragm. It's got a little lip that it sits in. If you just put the cap on, you just twist, wiggle it around a little bit, you'll find the sweet spot and it'll just set down real nicely. If you tear the diaphragm, you will definitely tell. The vehicle should idle fine, but if you step on the gas or open the butterfly, it'll fall flat on its face and almost die from the vacuum leak. So that's an easy way to tell if that's a problem. They're pretty easy to replace too. Okay, so that's back together. Next I'm going to go ahead and show you how to get into the fuel bowl to replace the jets, should you ever need to do that, which typically you will. You can see on this I've replaced these bottom screws with a better screw. You know, if you need to know, it's an M4 a metric screw. It's a 0.70 thread pitch, and it's I guess 14 millimeters long or 14 centimeters long, whatever it is. Typically you can find a 12 and a 16. The 14s are kind of hard to find typically. One thing you'll notice is because the butterfly is operated by the mechanism on, the mechanism on the side, it's got a direct connection down to the accelerator pump. So when you take the fuel bowl off, the accelerator pump comes out of the boot. Just be mindful of it. It can fall out if you're not careful with it. Pretty easy to put it back. Alright, as you can see right here, you've got your main jet sticking up right here. Kind of easy to get to. And then down inside this hole is your idle jet, or your slow jet as some people call it. Typically you want to make sure you have a proper kind of screwdriver to take this off. I use this, just the Craftsman double-ended screwdriver. You just want one that's got wide enough head on it to fit inside the jet easily, because they're brass, you can tear them off. I mean, they're just in there fairly lightly. Just pull it off and replace it. Typically you want to probably start, the lowest jet that I've heard in the main is typically a 190. I have a 190 in it now. That's what came in it when I got the carb. Typically that's not stock. It's not enough. I need to go to a bigger, something like a 205, 210 jet. I need to just do that here in the near future. Okay, the idle jet, typically a 45 or 48, somewhere around there is what most people are running. Mine came with a 45. I'm not going to talk about setting the float bowl level. That's kind of an arduous process. There's plenty of links and information about doing that. So we'll go ahead and put it back together. Main thing is making sure that you get the push rod back inside of the boot for the accelerator pump. Just kind of got to jockey it around. Oh, see, that little guy fell out. He just fits in the little hole on the back side of this thing. Get it back in there. Go ahead and put it back together. Just throw a couple screws in there just to hold it together for the now. One of the other things that you want to do is your idle setting, your idle enrichment. Typically on a carb that has not been modified, a lot of times you'll get the stock Harley Davidson carb, nothing's been done to them yet. This little point that comes down here is your idle air mixture. Typically there's a cap on there. What you want to do is take a small, it's just a little pressed in cap. You want to take a small drill bit, drill into the center of it, thread a screw into it, and then just use a pair of pliers to wiggle it out, and then you can get into the adjustment on that. Other than that, realistically, there's not a whole lot more to cover. On your throttle linkage here, you need to drill this hole out a little bit bigger than the barrel nut on the end of the throttle cable, and it fits in there just perfect. I haven't had any issues with it so far. The only other thing I need to talk about is your vacuum port on the back. I typically just run a simple vacuum cap over top of it. That's the vacuum source for the vacuum operated fuel petcock on the Harley Davidsons. It's got a strong vacuum at idle. Don't make the mistake I did. I accidentally hooked up my vacuum advance to that, so I had full advance at idle. Not a good thing to do. Just go ahead and cap that off. Other than that, I just make sure you got a good bottle of spray can of carburetor cleaner when you take this thing apart. Clean it up. If you need parts for these, I would recommend go to denniskirk.com. They've got good parts, fairly cheap, rebuild kits for these things. Depend on the quality, anywhere from 10 to 40 bucks. Jets on there, typically the main jets run about $3 or so. Pretty good guys to deal with too, and their website's pretty comprehensive. So yeah, that should take care of